なに行きたい気分です。楽しみにしています。
Alright, the next is Passengers, a science fiction film that is beautifully made, interesting, and just as good as Silent Running from 1972 with Bruce Dern. In this movie, a man by the name of Jim, who is a second-class passenger, there is a statement against corporations in this film. He's a second-class passenger and has very little money, and he talks a lot about credit card debt in here. He's traveling through space. The trip's 90 years, and the ship gets hit by a meteorite storm, and a large chunk of rock manages to get through the ship's ion defenses. This ion shield is actually theoretical and possibly will be made in the future. But a chunk of rock actually gets through the shield, smashes into the engine, and then we have a glitch in the ship. The ship just begins to break down slowly and surely. Systems begin to go wrong, which causes Jim's sleeping pod to wake him up. And he finds that he's the only one there. He's alone. He can't get back to sleep. He almost dies trying. And no matter what he does to interest himself, he gets to the point where he's trying to commit suicide. And it was while trying to commit suicide and handle his depression about being alone, about 1 year into the 90 years that he has left to reach the new homeworld, he spies a girl in another sleeping pod called Aurora, who he investigates and slowly falls in love with. And then he's left with the dilemma: do I wake up this girl? Do I selfishly wake this girl up to be my companion, thus destroying her life and possibly killing her before she can reach the new homeworld, just to be selfish and have a companion? Or does he just accept his fate and die? Well, he decides to wake her up, and then you have she doesn't know that he's done this. She thinks it's because of the glitch in the ship. Eventually she finds out through the robot. The only other living being on the ship is a robot bartender. She finds out by accident through him. And then there's this war between the two on board the ship, and they become separated. But the ship is starting to break down more and more until eventually one of the crew in charge of the decks is awoken, but woken not fully, and his body begins to decay, and he tries to help them save the ship from the natural disaster that it's in, because they don't know what's going on, but they do know the ship at this point has been breaking down frequently. So this ship's officer eventually dies of his being woken too early and not prepared properly. And Aurora and Jim fight to save the ship by going into the engine room and venting out the exhaust gases, which are building up and burning out the engine, which would eventually kill them all. And then we cut to the ending of the ship, where apparently they both died of old age at this point, and the passengers are all waking up as they should. The ship's been repaired. It is 90 years into the future. They've reached their destination, but they find that Aurora and Jim have turned the ship into a biosphere. So you see that they made the best of their Adam and Eve existence and succeeded. Although fatefully they didn't reach their colony base, but they did the best they could with what they had. This is one of the best science fiction films I've ever seen about survival and about being alone and dealing with it. Passengers.